This is a podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore how emotional load builds quietly over time, often without people realizing it until they feel overwhelmed. Most people don't wake up one day feeling overloaded. It accumulates gradually. Small things add up. Minor responsibilities linger. Emotional effort goes unnoticed because it feels normal. Think about an ordinary week. You respond to messages, you remember things for other people, you keep track of plans, you notice moods in the room. None of this feels dramatic. It's just part of going through the day. Over time, though, this quiet effort starts to weigh something. You might notice it when patience runs thin more quickly than usual, or when you feel unusually tired by the end of the day, even if nothing particularly difficult happened, or when the idea of another conversation feels like too much. Emotional load often builds when responsibility is uneven but unspoken. You might be the one who remembers birthdays, follows up on plans, checks in when someone seems off, or keeps things moving at work. Because you're capable, it gradually becomes expected. What makes this hard to notice is that there's no clear moment where you agreed to carry the load. It just happened. And because it happened gradually, it can feel hard to justify feeling tired by it. Another place emotional load builds is in decision making. Not big decisions, but constant small ones. What to prioritize, how to respond, when to speak up, when to let something go. Each decision uses a little energy. When decisions never stop, energy doesn't fully recover. This is why emotional load often shows up as a mental fog rather than stress. You're not panicking, you're not upset, you're just drained. Thinking feels heavier, motivation drops. Everything takes more effort than it should. Earlier in the podcast, we talked about boundaries and emotional regulation. Emotional load sits right between them. When boundaries are unclear, regulation has to compensate. When regulation compensates for too long, load builds. People often misinterpret this as a personal issue. They tell themselves they should cope better, be more organized, or be less sensitive. In reality, the system is responding to sustained demand. Emotional load also hides because it often comes from caring. Caring about work, caring about people, caring about doing things properly. That makes it harder to step back because the load is tied to values rather than obligation. You might recognize this in moments of relief. Relief when plans are cancelled. Relief when someone else takes charge. Relief when you're alone and don't need to respond to anyone. Relief is often the first signal that the load has been higher than you realized. Counseling helps people notice emotional load because it slows things down enough for patterns to become visible. Not to remove responsibility, but to clarify which parts are sustainable and which are not. Once load is recognized, it often becomes easier to adjust without dramatic changes. Small shifts matter. Clearer limits, fewer assumptions, and more shared responsibility. But recognition comes first. Without recognizing emotional load, people often reach a point where they withdraw suddenly, feel irritable without knowing why, or lose motivation altogether. These are not failures, they are delayed signals. Understanding emotional load as something that builds quietly helps people respond earlier and more kindly to themselves. It reframes exhaustion as information rather than weakness. In the next episode, we'll look at why some people end up carrying more emotional load than others and how those roles form without being consciously chosen. That's the scope of this episode. Each episode focuses on one specific theme, and this was it. We'll leave it here for now and continue from there in the next episode.